Hello everyone, it's Brianna Ray from BriIY here to bring you a super fun continuation from last week. This week I picked up some tiny little baby black canvases from my local Michael's craft store. I'm casually trying to cover the fact that you can totally see my reflection in this, but I've never actually painted on black canvas before, and I was trying to think of the best way to bring it into the channel. And after the amazing paints that I tried out last week, which you can see right over here, I figured this was the perfect time to start using them. These are super unique pigments. They have holographic glitters in them, as well as a duochrome. So they shift colors when you bend them in the light in certain ways. And I thought they looked absolutely stunning on the black paper I tested them out on. Therefore, black canvas was a natural next step. So I'm going to get started by creating my piece here, and I think I'm just going to snap into it. So let's get ready for that. 3, 2, 1, and go. There we have it. There is my finished piece of art. I didn't really feel like drawing it out on paper, or I guess rather on camera, so I did it on the canvas while I was sitting in front of my television watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm going to get started by doing some plain acrylics for my skin tone. I actually put a poll up on my Instagram story to see if I should have done watercolor or acrylics, and acrylics were winning pretty hardcore, but to be fair, no one had exactly seen the way that these super awesome watercolors were going to look. So I decided to, even though acrylic won by a landslide, test them out with a little bit of both. I'm going to be going in for the skin tone only with these acrylics, and maybe doing some more of the larger patches of color with the acrylic paint, just because I do only have very limited amounts of the duochromes and the holographics. I bought them in sample sizes, so I definitely don't want to have to use up too much of them covering such big areas. I know I want to go over the line work with some more shadowed colors. In this case, it's going to be that brown color that I used. I'm doing a similar sort of skin tone style to the one that I did when I copied a Sims painting not too long ago, because I think it turned out really great. And of course, I'm now realizing as I'm painting all of these and going through this footage again, it took me quite a few layers to make sure I covered up all that black. That is one, I don't want to say difficulty, but there is something that I didn't totally anticipate when I was going back through and working with black canvas, is how many layers you were going to need just to ensure that you could cover up that black canvas. White you never really have a problem with, it's always vibrant once you pop it on top, but this did require quite a bit of layering. So here you can see I'm going for really harsh shadows and highlights. I think it looks kind of cool. I cannot imagine why I totally just drew over her eyebrows here. It's actually really bugging me. But I'm sort of finishing up the skin tone here, and I'm preparing to get started with some of the specialty pigments. So I'm just using some very detailed brushes here, and I'm going to be taking 2 of these duochrome pigments to make my kind of focal points of this art piece. I've decided that I'm going to take this kind of yellow to green shift, and I wanted to use that on the eyes. I thought it would be kind of cool. And I think for the hair, I was pretty sold on doing this yellow to, I guess, magenta kind of shift. And the green to magenta I thought just maybe would have clashed a little bit too much. I can't fathom why I'm taking so long to make this decision, but maybe I'm just staring at and admiring these watercolors again. Either way, I'm very excited about this. I love the way that this ends up turning out, and hopefully you guys will too. I also wanted to incorporate some of these holographics as well. I thought it'd be kind of cool to add maybe a highlight onto her cheeks. I wasn't totally certain what color I wanted to do with that yet. I was thinking maybe the champagne or maybe a pink to kind of layer on top. At this point, I wasn't totally certain if the watercolors were going to layer onto the acrylic very well. I will test that out a little bit later, and I don't want to spoil anything for you, so I'll just let you see how that goes in a little bit. But for now, I think it's time to stop stalling and finally start painting. So here I am going with that gold to green. I'm going to go in here and I'm making that the eye color. I will go back over and redefine those eye shapes a little bit more with some details later. And of course, going in with this blue to magenta. Something that I really wanted to test out that I didn't test too much when I did my initial test, how many times can I say test, last week, was how well these duochromes layer on top of each other? Is there a way to make them sort of darker or lighter? And the closest thing I did to that was sort of comparing 2 layers of this to 2 layers of a Five Below pearlescent paint that I did last week. And I think there was maybe a slight difference, but I didn't really take the time to evaluate what that looked like. So as I was painting through her hair, I thought it'd be really great to add some more depth by going back over it with some of the same color and seeing how it layered, and if it sort of created that multi-dimensional look of having like different, I don't know, I guess strands of hair or clumps, if that's a more attractive way to say it. I know it's not, but wow, look at that shift. Here is where I tested out. It's watercolor. Of course it was gonna bleed. I don't know why I thought it wasn't gonna bleed, but it does layer pretty well, which gave me a lot of confidence. I went in with this sort of champagne gold holographic for these earrings. I don't know what my inspo for the shape of this was, but I thought it turned out all right. And I panicked again and wanted to go back to layering. I ended up taking the acrylic paints and going back over the eyebrows so that they had a more defined shape. And I think it looks a lot better now, for sure. So again, they're watercolors, guys. They're gonna bleed. Just to be on the lookout if you're ever using these. I ended up trying to color match the lip color to the way that the hair looks when it's at a different angle. So her outfit and makeup, I really wanted to sort of match the hair depending on the way. So you can see here on this angle, the lip color matches the hair very well. I have this sort of holographic sort of lip color going on to it, so it's still fun, as well as the sort of pink highlight that I pulled from the holographic glitters to sort of create a blush highlighter effect. And you can also see that it layered up really nicely on the hair. You can definitely see the individual strands, and I think it totally made a beautiful difference. I was really pleased with the way that that turned out as well. Now I'm going back in with some of the highlight colors for the makeup and the color for the shirt. It was not as good of a color match as I was hoping to the hair, and I decided to kind of combat that by going over it with some of the holographic blue to maybe cover up my mistake a little bit. I think either way, I really like the way this piece is turning out. I really debated on whether or not I wanted to do something in the background, but I decided against it. Parrot blue is definitely not the best match for the back here, but I did go over it with a little bit with that Tuscan teal to create those shadows, and the lip color to match the hair. It was, again, kind of a shot in the dark to see if it was going to work out, but I found that mixing flamenco red and petunia purple kind of came out to that perfect magenta tone. I was very pleased with the color match there. Not so much with the shirt, given the fact that you generally will see it from this blue angle, but again, it can't be perfect. Either way, testing out these watercolor paints in action, it's still stunning. If you didn't see my review from last week, you really should. I'm just so happy with the way that these paints work. I'm really even happier that I was able to take these sample paint dots or whatever she calls them and turn it into an actual piece of artwork, however small. I think this really left me inspired, and honestly, I'm hoping that it left you pretty inspired too. I love how at the different angles it sort of looks like her hair is in a gradient or that her eyes are in a gradient. They're not as obvious, the eyes are, but I still think this piece turned out great. And if you're inspired, again, I will leave the link to this Etsy shop where I got these paints in the description box below. That is all I had. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, I put out new videos every Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and I'd love for you to be here for the next one. Thanks again so much, and see you then. Bye.